Hi, hello everyone. Oh, this is exciting. Give it a couple of minutes for more people to join. So please do let us know in the chat bar where you're tuning in from. It's always really nice to know how far and wide our audience is across the globe. Yes, Edinburgh to Massachusetts, I love it. We're actually sort of global right now. I am in London. My name's Magdalena Malty and I work for Second Home, and everyone else is in Los Angeles in Second Home Hollywood. So yeah, it's nice to, and Lisbon, our other location, fabulous. Okay, so to get going, I'm going to kick off. Hi, I'm Magdalena, and I organise a culture programme for Second Home. For those of you who don't know what Second Home is, we're a creative workspace and we're a cultural venue. We started in London, but we have now locations in Los Angeles and Lisbon, and we believe in creating a diverse community because we believe that if you bring lots of different people together, lots of different businesses, organizations, creative individuals, that's when great things happen, and that's when new ideas are born. And a big part of what Second Home does is curating a public free cultural program, because we believe that you become most inspired when you are exposed to new ideas. And the best thing, I think, personally, to come out of 2020 for Second Home was a brilliant partnership with the Berggruen Institute, who are also crazy about promoting and exchanging ideas. And this event's really special to us because I was in LA pre-coronavirus, and I had the absolute pleasure of working with Get Lit, and they are an incredible organisation. They do so much good work in Los Angeles and have, without a doubt, the most talented and inspiring kids I've ever met and listened to. So to do this event with the Berggruen and hear ideas from kids who are so talented and so perceptive about what is happening in America, what is the political landscape, who we were just discussing earlier, can't even vote. So please do hear what they have to say. And just so you know, Second Home Hollywood is a voting centre. So if you are in the US, please do go to Second Home Hollywood. If you're in Los Angeles, please do go to Second Home Hollywood and vote. But anyone in the US, please do vote on behalf of these kids, because what you're about to hear tonight is truly special. And yeah, I will now pass over to Rachel and Sarah, our wonderful partners from the Berggruen Institute, live from Second Home Hollywood. And yeah, enjoy, guys.
Thanks so much, Mags, and thanks everybody for connecting with us here today on the grounds here at Second Home in Los Angeles. I mean, we are really delighted to be here. As you see, it's an urban architectural and botanical oasis, and we are delighted to be partnering with Second Home and also with Get Lit. Want to just say a quick shout out to Rohan and his wonderful team, Mags in London and the team in Portugal and Lisbon and on the ground here in Los Angeles. Thanks so much for the welcome here, and we've really enjoyed our time over the last several months working on this project together. And there couldn't be a more wonderful one leading into the US presidential election. And we're delighted to get to work with Get Lit, and hope that you'll get to know and follow them and hear from their poets, know their names, because we feel that they have a very bright future ahead of them, and their words are very telling. On that note, we would say that one of the reasons why we're so excited to be involved in this project and to have worked so hard on it is that at the Institute, we study the future of democracy, how to rethink it, how to renew it, and how to make it more viable for our future, for future generations. Some of the ways that we're doing that is through looking at new models for systemic governance. So that could be citizen assemblies, it could be working on deliberative processes on an international scale. We have some programs here on the ground in Los Angeles through our Sense LA program. And additionally, we have a new model, an exciting one for youth environmental service. And that's a wonderful segue to tell you about my colleague on my communications team. Her name is Sarah Gilman. She happens to be working on the Youth Environmental Project for Our Future of Democracy. She is an actor. Some of you have seen her in film and television, but she's also an activist, a climate, environmental, and mental health and awareness activist, and we're delighted that she's joined us at the Berggruen Institute. She's been with us for about a year, so please get to know her. She will be interviewing the poets later today. You'll get to see and hear from her. But in the meantime, over to you, my dear, Sarah Gelman.
Hi everyone, my name's Sarah. I'm so excited to be here. We're literally in the middle of like a forest in the middle of Los Angeles. It's beautiful, and I'm so excited I got the opportunity to talk to these like deep thinkers and these young poets and really hear about their worries and their thoughts on the future. I really hope you enjoyed this event, and thank you for connecting with us all. So on that note, we're going to pass it over to Mason from Get Lit, and he'll be hosting this event. Thank you guys again, and
don't
vote.
Forget to vote.
Vote, please vote.
Welcome, welcome. My name is Mason Granger, and I'm the manager of community outreach for Get Lit. I'm also the coach of the youth poetry team, and those are the youth poets who we're going to be hearing later on in the stream. Thank you so much to Magdalena and Rachel and Sarah for those intros. I feel like this entire stream could just be 5 people in an assembly line saying vote, 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 and it would be the most important message that we could possibly convey here. But yes, it's so lovely to be here at Second Home. Thank you again to them and the Berggruen Institute. Just a little bit about myself. I'm going to be one half of your hosting duo today. My name is Mason Granger, as I said. We're here in Los Angeles, but I've spent most of my time, my youth poetry work is rooted in New York City. So when I was out on the East Coast, was a full-time touring poet for about 15 years, and then I got to work at the Bowery Poetry Club. I was the director and then the executive director out there, and so I'm steeped in poetry, but it's always been the purpose of poetry and spoken word for young people, for young audiences, and by young people. And so that's where my work is rooted, which then took me out here to Get Lit, and I've found a home here in obviously a crash-landed spaceship in the middle of the jungle, also known as Hollywood. And so now that is me, and I'm going to kick it over to our co-host for this event, Tyris. Tell you a little bit about himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyrus Winter. My pronouns are he, him, his, and this background is not artificial. I am on the roof of a little pod at Second Home, and I'm so excited to just be like witnessing these views in the middle of this jungle, because I love green. Green is my favorite color, although I'm not wearing it. But I do want to talk a little bit about poetry and the poetry that you will hear today. Poetry for me has always been an outlet, has always been a way for me to vocalize how I'm feeling that I can never really just conceptualize in a just everyday talk. Like, you don't just go off into monologues and tangents in the middle of conversation. So to just have those 3 minutes of I'm able to captivate the world for only a few seconds within my speech and within what I want to say to people, is just so amazing that poetry allows us, and me specifically, so many outlets and so many just venues for me to just spread my love and my joy and my words and just my view and my take on the world in whatever seconds that I decided to write it into. And I'm gonna throw it back to Mason in his little spaceship pod to introduce.
Thank you kindly, thank you kindly. So before we introduce our first poet, I want to tell you a little more about what Get Lit specifically does, and on the back of what Tyris said, talking about poetry and the impact that poetry has had on his life personally as a young poet who came up through the Get Lit system, and what we're actually doing out in the world, helping these young people get their voices out. It's kind of in 3 parts, all right? So Get Lit's approach to poetry is fusing classic and contemporary poetry, all right? And so we take the classic poetry, and this can be as old as the Greek myths of yore on up through 2 years ago Kendrick Lamar album. All right, whatever it is, like whenever the words came, they came, and it's a classic because it's great, not a classic because it's old. Okay, so we put together a different anthology of these poems every year, and these poems form the backbone of the Get Lit curriculum. All right, and so we take this curriculum And we partner with schools in and around Los Angeles County school districts. And we go in, we send teaching artists in to teach from the textbook, and we teach these poems, and we allow the poems to connect with the kids. The kids choose whichever one speaks most to them, kind of opening their eyes that poetry doesn't have to be whatever their idea of poetry was before, but poetry can be this, it can be classic, it can be now, it can be the future, and so fusing those timelines together, and that's one part of what we do. Then when we work with these poets, especially now in quarantine, COVID times, we have a whole digital media department where ideally, yes, these would be live in-person gatherings, just like the most raw form of democracy, of just like, hey, I have something to say, I'm gonna get up in front of this room full of people and I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna say it honest, and I'm gonna say it authentically. All right, that's just the most distilled version of that. And so that's really the backbone of poetry. But now in COVID and distancing times, we have our digital department where we take these poems and we make high quality videos and streams, and we're going to see some of those coming up later. And then we organize poetry slams. We had a whole virtual poetry slam with 150 kids from their living rooms in 150 homes around Los Angeles, and we organized them. It was like a tournament, like a World Cup bracket of virtual poetry by young people. It was a 3-day event back in April, and we were building the plane while we were flying it, and we actually landed it, and some really good poems landed, and it was a beautiful time. And so it's great to fusing, classic and contemporary, so the young poets can stand on the shoulders of giants and read those works, internalize them, and come up with their own work. And so without any further ados from myself nor Tyris, we want to kick it to who is the crux of all of this and why we are here, the youth poets of Get Lit. And so the first poet who we're going to hear from is Salome Agbaroshi. So Salome.
Seems like you've tapped into like a level that most people haven't, of like empathy, right? And trying to like get people's experiences across in addition to your own. Has that always come naturally to you in terms of writing from kind of a collective versus writing just your perspective, and how has that like filtered into the other parts of your life?
I would say I always write from the perspectives of many people, because like I said, I always write about social justice issues. So whether it's women oppression or African American oppression, or just the oppression of any minorities anywhere, my experience as a Black female isn't the same as someone else's experience as a Black female. So it's just drawing from different perspectives to really push an agenda that calls for equality and for freedom and for justice for all people. Hello, my name is Salome Agbaroshi. My poem is called Are We There Yet?, written in 2020. Look out the window and see concrete jungles where you're deemed most dangerous beast. And when street cops turn kings top a food chain looking for a feast, well, these roads seem a bit more treacherous, so you gotta ask, Ma, are we there yet? She says zilch and doesn't flinch besides the bounce of potholes. You know treachery. You came from the jungle, but this different type of danger sits stiffly in your soul. You realize these highways are caution tape on indigenous land, a graveyard of Asian workers covered in concrete quicksand, and the tombstone for the missing girl whose search party quit last week. These roads are guilt, gluttony, and taxpayer money, and that doesn't feel right, so you gotta ask again. Mama, are we there yet? She says nothing, and windshield wipes away the acid rain from her eyes. We have rain in the jungle. We just tuck the clouds deep within the canopy cavity of our tear ducts to stay alert for lions, red for meat, and for forks in the road. Look through the bars of this moving cell and see cages pass faster than time does. One group, Black Panthers from the jungle, moving in the center of the interstate. I don't know, some weird middle passage or something. The next group, children on the outside looking in, denied access because their parents didn't have the proper driver's license. You start to develop road rage. That doesn't feel right, so you gotta ask again. Mama, there've been many bumps in the road, so are we there yet? They took Daddy through the exit 58 miles back. We've been driving for 400 years, and I'm getting car sick. So Mama, are we there yet? Ma replies, are we where yet? Because the future is a gas bill, or the truth, or death, or a merciless God. It is a striped hyena, ruthless, evil, salivating from the mouth, ready to pounce on any creature in its path. The future, no matter how fast we drive, it is coming. So stop running your mouth in the backseat like you got someplace to be. We take this ride and we take it cautiously. Now listen when I speak. If you see flashing lights and hear 3 beeps, halt expeditiously. Make your hands visible to not come off too threatening, and just pray that sitting in this traffic doesn't make you too tan or make the cops too hungry. Because royalty must eat. Don't make a meal of yourself. This claustrophobic caravan wasn't built for this departure, but this horn is an emancipation proclamation, a key to child cages and higher minimum wages. These headlights are a search party and tax reform. This is justice and power. This gas pedal, a time machine to when cars have a gear that spells power, an exhaust that never tires, tires that never wear despite the miles per hour. This ride is rewriting street laws, making the freeway actually free for the first time, reclaiming our jungles just to throw cucumber seeds in the cracks. These wheels are the movement. This well, fueled by the heartbeat under the pavement, is the ignition. We drive. GPS set destination, future. Are we there yet? I think after a few days of thinking, what do I want this poem to be about? I just thought of the idea of like a long car ride. You have a destination, but then it's like, are you there yet? Because the ride is full of uncertainty and you're driving to something, but during that ride, you kind of forget where you're going. And I thought that was the perfect concept to write about the future, because we see things happening and we really don't know what's gonna happen next. Like you hear in the news, possible war, or another instance of police brutality, and we're like, what's gonna happen next? What's the future? What's the destination after this long ride that we keep going on? And we know we're going somewhere, because the future, of course, it's coming no matter what. Like, as long as you're living, the future is coming too. What is that gonna look like? Are we there yet? We know what justice looks like. We know what freedom and equality looks like. When are we getting there? So I think that's kind of what came to me with the poem that I performed today. Just that metaphor, I think it related pretty well.
And that was Salome Agbaroshi with Are We There Yet? Salome, believe it or not, Salome's 14 years old and just started writing with Get Lit over the summer, and came to us and had never been to a poetry event or spoken word event before, showed us her first poem, and I was actually floored, like not even a hyperbole. I think I did take a knee. But yeah, we have very brilliant, she's valedictorian of her sophomore class, so she's just a brilliant mind who's now channeling that through poetry. And my personal favorite part of that poem wasn't even in the poem. It was in the outro, the interview part, where she said, as long as you're alive, the future is coming. And it's just such a perfect way of putting that, the inevitability of the future. And so you got to make something of it. And so let's make the best of it. All right. And Tyris, I want to know what was your the part of the video or a part of Salome's presentation that spoke to you the most?
So the line that stuck out to me the most was caution tape freeways. And not only that line, but every line that Salome said was a literal bar. just the fact that I know Salome and I know of her determination and the fact that she was able to write a poem with this extended metaphor of conceptualizing a car into where we're going as a country. And she's saying like, keep your eyes on like where we have to go, like as people, as a society. It was just so brilliant and so impactful. And everything that Salome writes, I'm like snapping in the background, like her favorite cheerleader. I'm like, oh my God, she could literally be the dictionary and I would be floored. I'd be like, go off.
All right, so now the next poet we're actually gonna, I think it was the dramatic pause because it's uncouth to introduce oneself. But the next poet we're gonna hear from is actually our co-host Tyrus Winter. So Tyrus, please take us away. Take us away.
Oh my God, stop. So hello again. Oh my God, I can't believe it. So I'm gonna do a poem and it's titled Make Me Your Black Queer Teen Idol. But I wanna talk a little bit about the poem prior to like just spit in bars. So I wrote this poem as, well, I initially was gonna write like a very like angry poem. I tend to write like diss poems about like America, which is easy to do. I can just be like diss America anytime I wake up, diss. But I was like, a lot of people I notice in poetry are like, oh my God, I don't like these angry poems. And of course I'm gonna like screw them. But I was like, what is a way to reach people? And something that I find that people just don't shove away so easily is love. I mean, you can, but everybody loves someone and everybody needs love in their life. So I was like, let me conceptualize a poem that is wholeheartedly from love and what I've always wanted and what I want to see and what I would love to have in our world and in our lives. So this poem is entitled Make Me Your Black Queer Teen Idol. Play my songs on every radio station. Let my voice loop in your ears in the new headphones you purchased to hear the bass properly on my latest hit. Listen on your way to appointments, while sitting in traffic, while ignoring your partner. Remember my lyrics in the shower. Want so badly to see me in concert, rip out my cover on Vogue at the liquor store. Don't purchase the magazine, place it above your headboard. Draw me portraits, send me letters, friend request my private Facebook. Let me be your lock screen. Let the world love me long enough to become its sweetheart. Be the black queer teen idol it has always needed. Don't let nobody pay me less. Deny me jobs or access. Witness me go platinum. The media will never edit me a lighter complexion. Never twist my words or censor them. Never put me down or fetishize me. Instead, will love me. Summer-soaked anthem blasted on makeshift phone cup stereos of every household. Be the first black queer teen to win a music award in every genre. Perform at the Super Bowl. Face plastered on backpacks and cereal boxes. Have my own perfume and shoe line. Let me be loved by a no longer homophobic father. Allow my mother to call and say sorry for not accepting me earlier. Have white cis gay men apologize for ever discriminating. Watch me switch hate to love with the first track on my album. Love me in North America. Love me in South America and Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, everywhere I wasn't welcome. Love me while I'm alive when I'm not a headline. Love me as if I'm your friend, like I'm your family. Love me like I'm your everything, but just so happen to be black and queer. Love that I'm proud to be a black queer. Make me your dark skin, afro wearing, tongue popping, high heel strutting, black queer teen idol. Thank you so much. I'm looking at the chat and I'm like, oh my God. What an amazing just place to just be performing poetry. Can you imagine? I'm on a roof, a yellow rooftop, doing poems on a what is today? It's a Thursday. What a fabulous Thursday. Mason, are you still with us? Have you been taken out by the lines, by the sorcery of words?
Oh, I am most definitely hither. Not exactly under the same exact yellow roof, but it is analogous, and I know where you are, and I was absorbed by the bars. So yes, thank you so much, Tyris. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, thank you. So we're gonna keep the show rolling and moving. The next poet who we're gonna hear from is Violeta Esquivel. Now, Violeta is also 14 years old, but has been with Get Lit for, believe it or not, 5 years, and has been coming to Saturday class with her mom faithfully almost every Saturday since she was 9 years old. And so the voice comes early for some. And so we're gonna watch a video of Violeta here. And so I bring you Violeta.
Just hearing stories from my parents, like I would ask my dad, what was it like coming from Mexico all the way here? Mom, what was it like for so-and-so to get over here? Just listening to those stories and growing up with those, I would put those into my poems. I would incorporate those pieces into my poems, listen to other people's input, and it just pieced everything together. I am working towards a future where I don't have to see my parents worry about bills or where our food is going to come from. I want them to stop worrying about that. Like, they've been on this earth for longer than I have, been worrying about those issues for longer than I have, and 14 years of seeing their pain every single day. I don't have enough money to get you food. I don't have enough resources to get you what you need. I don't want them to live like that anymore, and I don't want to live like that anymore as well. So I'm trying to do the best I can for them, and also for me, but as well as community. I don't like seeing other people suffering through the same things I've suffered. So if I can, I'll try to help you as much as I can in my power. There's a lot of things I want to stop in this world, but I'm not Wonder Woman, so I can't do it all, but I'll do what I can. Hi, my name is Violeta. I'm 14 years old, and I'm a freshman in high school. I don't know what the future holds for my generation or this planet. With so many safe spaces lost, this poem reimagines the Little Mermaid in today's polluted waters. This poem is titled Mermaid Goddess. I shimmer like Hawaiian oceans, speak every language of the sea. Lenguaje de sal y perdón, tongue of salt and forgiveness. I've got gadgets and gizmos aplenty, sunken treasures of trumpets and pearls, a sacred coral necklace on the brink of extinction because of rising temperatures. I've got long dark hair that goes past my shoulders, glows with sun-kissed copper highlights, but remember, mermaid hair don't care. Mermaids got bigger fish to fry. Mermaid goddesses know that climate change is real. As our oceans spike a fever from the northeast Atlantic to the western Pacific, waves and worries increase. Kelp forests dying, plankton poisoned, leaving nothing left to snack on. I've got who's its and what's its galore, 13 million tons of plastic, cigarette butts polluting our waters, straws blocking the airway of sea turtles, bags, 100 billion used per year, choking our seals, whales, and dolphins. Global warming, gentrifying coral reefs, no longer red like the tides of our demise, displacing homes. Mermaid goddesses don't care who you love as long as you're happy. Snails or whales, starfish and sawfish, all of them deserve to be loved, all of them endangered species. So much at stake with all that you take. My voice is 14 times stronger than the fake tan man who won't reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Dear Chiquita mermaids, be careful when you ride the waves of the future. Remember your beauty on the inside, your compassion for the climate, hope for your home. Have no fear of depth as rising sea levels become the new normal. Little ones, use your voice, keep our home healthy. I've got gadgets and gizmos aplenty. I've got who's its and what's its galore. You want thingamabobs? I've got 20. But who cares? No big deal. I want more. Please, don't call me Little Mermaid. Unlike Ariel, I would never give up my voice for a man. Thank you.
why spoken word for you? And like creating your response, you're obviously incredibly talented with words and very eloquent. So why spoken word? Why not writing an essay or short stories or like articles? Like what about this platform, like this format?
Spoken word poetry, you can get up on stage, raise your voice, you can speak as low as you want and you'll get your point across. You can speak as loud as you want and you'll get your point across. The thing about spoken word poetry is like people listen to your words. People listen to your words. And that's what we need. Because you can say something on social media and it'll go through one ear and out the other. Nobody's gonna understand it. But with spoken word poetry, you break everything that you're feeling, that you're experiencing apart, and you write it into something beautiful. You present it in a way where it's more understandable and it's creating its own art in a way. So you can turn a tragic story, cover it up with Disney, and no one will ever know. Like my Mermaid Goddess poem. By the title, you think, oh, this is gonna be a little kid poem. It's about mermaids. So this is gonna be a little kid's poem. No, I turned The Little Mermaid into something realistic. I talked about global warming. I talked about kids being locked in cages, women's rights. I incorporated many topics into one childhood movie. Yeah. And that's something that I really like about spoken word poetry. Poetry in general, you can do that as well.
I could sit and listen to Violeta speak for days and sing for another couple of days. That was Violeta Esquivel. Violeta Esquivel. The part of that hit me, and I'm just gonna pass it real quick, is just when she said, "I'll do what I can, but I can't do it all," which is just so clear and so simple, but still such a profound like understanding to have come to as a young person. I can just remember, banging my head against the wall, trying to do, not knowing the line between what I can do and what I can't do, what is effective use of my time and what is not. But just to have that perspective going in is a good way to approach change on any scale, especially a large scale that Violeta's talking about with climate change and global issues like that. Tyrus, what do you think?
Honestly, to piggyback off of that, where she was talking about like doing what she could, and also to highlight the line that I would never give up my voice for a man. Yes, yes, Violeta. Period. End scene, and that's done. Bye. Anyway, but just to like piggyback off of those two lines, just the fact that poetry allows the avenue for us to express ourselves in these ways, and what she was saying, that she can only does what she can. So she's doing what she can as an individual, and thus like exuding that out into the world. So people hear this and people know what she's feeling, and that's how change starts. It starts with us, and then it like wrinkles out. Like you can start the puddle or start the little ripple in the pond, and then it goes out to the other people. So it was just so brilliant and so amazing. And Violeta is just like a soft power that is going to change the world, like so many of our other poets here. And it's just, Gelman is bringing y'all fire. Y'all better donate now.
We're just going to turn this into a telethon now. If if you are so moved, actually, we're going to turn this into a telethon of questions, okay? Because you can, if you're watching this via the Zoom webinar, if you are in the registered webinar, you can put your questions using the Q&A function, the Q&A box, and we're going to have a Q&A session at the very end of all of this. We do have a couple more poems left to share, but if you have any questions for us, personally or just about poetry in general that perhaps myself and Tyris can shed some light on, please feel free to use the Q&A function within the Zoom webinar. If you are watching this via YouTube stream, I don't know, maybe just like whisper your question into your hands and blow it up into the ether, and eventually it shall be answered. Faith. But if you're in Zoom, hit the Q&A function. All right, the next poem that we're going to share, it's actually a poem by myself. And so the intro, like I mentioned earlier, I've done a lot of youth poetry work and shows and performances and workshops for very young poets, aging as young as 5, 6 years old on up through high school and college. And in every Q&A, there's always some form of the question, where does your inspiration come from? Or where do the ideas for these poems come from? And for me, and I think it applies to a lot of poets, it comes from the same place that moments of inspiration come to everyone, every day, everywhere. The only difference is what you choose to do with that idea when it hits you, what you choose to do with that spark when it comes. So for instance, a lot of people will have like, oh, this idea, what's this thing? Interesting. And then what they'll do is they'll pick up their phone and they'll tweet it out, put the phone down, get 5 retweets, and call it a day. That's one thing. Another thing that people can do, you can take that idea, you can, I want to turn, what is this? I can't wait to tell so-and-so this story at work or at lunch or somewhere. So you have that spark, but you hold on to it for a little bit longer before you decide to share it with the world. So what poets do, myself and other Get Lit poets, will take those same sparks, but then we'll just like write it down and keep it to ourselves. Or just take that idea, I put it in my iPhone notes and just like lay the phone down and keep it moving. So then when I sit down to write, like specifically for a writing session, then I open up my phone or open up my notebook and I have a nest of ideas that have been germinating in here for who knows how many weeks. And it's just like fertile soil to then like pull out the pen and get down to the business of expression, I guess. And so this poem that I'm gonna read, it came from a very specific instance where I was picking up a friend from the bus stop. And it was 2 friends, and they were apologizing for being late. And one of them was like, yeah, I packed the night before, but Kira packed 20 minutes before, and so we were late. And that was just the thing that I needed to then connect it to a whole lot of other thoughts that I'd been having for a while. And so here's this poem. I realize that there are 2 types of people in this world. Right? There are those who pack the night before and those who pack 20 minutes before. There are those who curse the subways, and then those who appreciate living in a place with subways at all. There are those who want to be buried raw in the ground under an avocado tree, so 10 years later surviving friends can gather to enjoy a bowl of Mason guacamole, and the rest. There are 2 types of people, okay? There are flowers and there are bees. There are beans and grounds, stillness and people. 3 types, in fact, okay? There are those who are dead, those who are not dead yet, and the rest. There are 2 types of music. There's the note and the rest. There are 2 types of rest. There's the kind I'm capable of and the kind that exists. There are 2 types of existence, 1 and 0. Types of God, but there is the eye and there is the beholder, and somewhere in between are 2 types of beauty. Okay, there are people, of which there are 8 billion types, and gods of an equivalent number, and they grab their partners do-si-do, swing them around till it's all gray matter and pink spirals and 2 types of people. Who knows and who cares? Because really, you only need to know 2 things. One thing completely, and how to build a metaphor. But on the other hand, there are 2 types of bills. There's the ones I've got and the ones I've paid. There are 2 types of survival. There's the kind that eats some people alive and the kind that I'm lucky enough to kind of do by default. But hey, in these circles of life, everybody's got to fend for themselves, right? It's like football. All right, 80,000 different types of people gather to briefly become the same kind of person, to look out at a field, at a world they recognize and understand together, where the lines are drawn exactly where they belong, where both sides are playing the same game. Does that sound like any world you know? Yeah, me neither. Or maybe it's kind of like religion, all right? 2 billion people gathered to study one metaphor completely. Energy can't be created nor destroyed, only change form. So in a way, energy is its own father and son. And if you were a book, I bet the old new and the new you would contradict too, but that's just a testament to how much you've grown. Man, I just want to be the guac and let the chips fall where they may. Because everybody's got a zen for themselves, right? Even when it feels like there are only 2 kind people in this world, we're more likely to change the rules of football after a blown referee's call than we are to change the gun laws after the mass murder of children. I mean, life is just death on vacation, but damn! You know how when a car is moving at that exact speed, it looks like the wheel spokes are no longer spinning, but still, it's just a static projection gliding along, the speed of the spokes perfectly synced with the speed of your perception. Well, I am a Charlie horse of energy that entropy is going to take about 80 years to massage away. And within that cramp, the light that is my body has slowed to this exact speed. So that as I zip around this Mobius strip of time-space, I can look across and see an image of myself no longer spinning, but just a glass static projection gliding along. And when the sum of parts can look out and see itself as something greater, like something that deserves better, man, those are the two types of people in this world. Thank you. And so that's a piece. That's a recent piece that I wrote, and honestly, it's it applies to today's world. I mean, especially here in the States, of just how everything is either or. It's either Democrats or Republicans, this or that, and the highest level of compromise that people aspire to is to be able to see both sides or work across the aisle between both sides. It's always this talk of both sides, but even that is reinforcing the idea that there are only two sides, which I think that in itself is something that we need to get away from and kind of shift towards, just towards a more open-minded thing. Like, okay, a continuum has two sides, but really it's all the blending of the infinite points that come between those 2 points. That's where everyone falls. That's where everyone lies. That's where everything lies, somewhere on a continuum or set of continuums. And so the sooner we can get away from these false dichotomies, I think, is the sooner that we can get towards like the actual truth of where human beings live and or how human beings exist in the world. So Berggruen Institute, get on that. All right. Well, moving forward, we have one more poet to bring to you this morning or evening, afternoon, wherever we may be. Just a reminder, please, if you feel so moved and desire to do so, put a question in the chat. Throw a question in the chat. In the meantime, we're going to listen to youth poet, Get Lit player, Naire Francis.
When you read your poetry, when you write your poetry, like, do you feel heard?
Yes. I do feel heard through my poetry because I feel like whatever I choose to perform is exactly what I am feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I need people to hear, and I feel like other people also need to hear that, because I've written about like Black girls going missing and like Black Lives Matter and like the prison system. So there's so many things that need to be talked about and I feel like aren't really being talked about. So I feel like I'm able to be heard through my voice. Yeah. And I'm able to share with other people. So I feel like it's just like amazing to be able to perform. And I hope that like when people hear it, I hope they're able to feel seen, especially because that's what I want the most. I want other people to feel seen. I want to feel seen myself, so yeah. My name is Naire Francis, and this is a poem that I wrote called The Future. In 1950, Gwendolyn Brooks became the first woman to win a Pulitzer Prize in poetry. Globally, 30 women have followed in her footsteps. If I could author the future, I would write the world in the wild wonder of women, where breathing is succeeding. No need to go the extra mile for half of the pay. It's essential there's women in power at the table, bringing oceans of new perspectives, waves of women crashing against the shorelines. Hear our voices say we are ready and able to guide. We have made great strides with the revolutionary number of women running for office, over 100 women sworn into the 116th Congress. But we still have water to tread. We need access to equal opportunity, a future where college education is free, where gender and race doesn't affect you getting a degree. The future is in high schools, where meditations replace detentions. No more suspensions, we need to listen. Patience over punishment. I see a future where no child is left behind, or overpacked classrooms with no supplies. No more turning a blind eye to bullying, to kids who need nurses and counseling, to those with disabilities and learn at a different speed. In schools, I want to learn about my culture and history, how my ancestors were royalty, and Bessie Coleman, the first African-American woman to become a pilot. In the future, I want no hate crimes and peace for the LGBTQ community, protection for trans women of color. In the future, I want no housing or employment discrimination based on sexuality or gender identification, because the future doesn't care if you're gay, straight, or trans. The future wants a chance to change. My heart is set on a world where Black lives matter, where no human is illegal, no kids locked in cages torn away from their parents, where indigenous people aren't going missing and people of color aren't the most convicted, where no one is a target because of their skin. In the future, I want a place where homeless people are treated like humans and not accidents. This future is not easy. It will not come if we don't call it. It will not happen if we don't make it. We must rise together, demand change, combat violence. We are in this undivided, the fire inside ignited, our fist up, united. We will fight until we are free. The future is waiting for us to write it. I share my poetry and writing on social media, so sometimes it's like scary because there's so many people who have different perspectives on things that you're saying, and sometimes it's kind of like scary to do that. But now I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, I think about like Nina Simone, you know what I mean? She created so many beautiful things, and she was able to share her voice and what she had to say during a time where it's not safe for her to say those things, and where people were, not everyone would agree with what she was saying, and she still put that out there for the world to see. So it's kind of like, she did it, and I could do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is the most beautiful dismount that I can imagine. A young poet, Naire, 16 years old, looking at some of the greats like Nina Simone, and I know a big influence for Naire is Gwendolyn Brooks, and just being able to look at them and their lives and what they've done and what they've put out into the world and be like, well, if she can do it, so can I. Know what I mean? It's just like, yes, that is exactly the kind of foundation that being inside of young people makes me feel cool about where we're going to be 10, 20, 40 years down the line. It's great. It's great. Thank you, Naire. And thank you to all the young poets, and thank you to Second Home and the Berggruen Institute. We have some time for a Q&A session here. So I have a question over here, and this question is going to go to Tyris. Tyris, anonymous attendee asks, how did you start out with poetry, especially at a young age? Where could young poets that are just starting out go to get somewhere? So Tyris, could you please enlighten us? Is what I would say if Tyrus's camera was on and I could cut to it. But instead, I can take the question. So what I would say, I started out with poetry. My journey was a little different. When I was all of the ages of the youth poets that we saw here just now, I had not even picked up a pen for the first time. I didn't start until my freshman year of college at Rutgers University in New Jersey. And one of my classes took a trip to a legendary place in New York City called the New Eurekan Poets Cafe. And I had, like most folks of my age and generation, I had a preconceived notion of what poetry was and what it is and what it could be. And I had already decided that was not my jam. Okay. And this is back in 2001. And so this is pre-YouTube, pre-functional internet as we know it. And so it was the kind of thing where if you didn't know where it was going, where the spoken word place was, or where this new scene was, you didn't know it existed. So I went to go on the trip, the field trip, because it was free and I was broke, and the girl I had a crush on in the class was going, and so, okay, free date. So I go and ended up falling in love with the poetry, and it was unbelievable. It was funny and serious at the same time, like people just being their entire authentic selves all in one 3 to 4 minute block, and it just blew my mind that you could do that, you know, like the fusing of just all facets that everyone is made of, all of that can be put into poetry. And so I was like, yo, I want to do that. So I started going to the open mic on the campus. Then what did we do? We shifted from there, started hosting it and moving on. But I think that for young people today, what they could do, the advice that I would give would be, if you don't see your scene, or if you don't see the thing that is an authentic representation of how you feel, like, you can create that space for yourself. All right. And especially now in digital realms, you can do this. You have a computer, you have a pen, you have a paper. This art form has a low entry point. You know, it's not, if I want to play the harp, you know, I got to buy a harp and I got to practice my scales for 10 years before I can really be up there performing. Like, nah, poetry is there and it's accessible for anyone. If you have something to say, you can write it down, you can get up and you can say it. And that's one of the things I think is really beautiful about this. And so I would encourage any young person to find these online poetry establishments, and you can start at getlit.org, and we can direct you to anywhere, wherever you may be on earth. All right, Los Angeles to Lisbon to Liverpool to encompass all of the streamers. All right, so Tyrus, if you want to hop in at any moment, you can just turn your camera on and I can click over to you. In the meantime, we have another question from Reka Adamek. Apologies on my pronunciations if it may stray from the truth. But your question is, how do you draw inspiration to start writing again if it begins to feel like a chore? That is a good question. I think in times, a thing that I've noticed about what we would commonly refer to as writer's block, and when you sit down to write and it's just not coming out the way that you want it, it's not that you can't write. The problem is that you feel that whatever you're writing isn't up to your own personal standards of good that it can be. And the frustration of that is what kind of like weighs on you and makes the act of writing feel like a chore. And so I would say, as a way to get out of that, get joyous. Like, if I have to sit down and write about a particular thing and it's not coming out, well, what is coming out? What can I get to come out? I just think of a past story that brought you joy, something in your life today that brings you joy. Just sit and make an endless string of rhymes and write down a joke that you like whatever it is, the fact that you're writing it out, that's like unclogging the tubes or unclogging the pipes that may be backed up in your mind. And so once you get that out and just get something flowing, then the things that you want to flow, then the path is open for those things to then flow forth. I think I read a book by comedian Steve Martin, and I might be confusing him with someone else, but in my mind it was Steve Martin who said this following quote, and he said that when he has writer's block, the longer that he has writer's block, the more excited that he starts to feel, because he knows that the day that it does break through, the day that it does open up, that an amount of creative output that is equal to the time that it was backed up, that's what's waiting to flow forth. If you think of it like a dam, like the longer the dam blocks all the water, the bigger the lake behind it gets. And so when you finally do break through, it's gonna whoosh through, and he just like looks forward to the moment that future brilliance is gonna come out. And so maybe hopefully somewhere in there is a mindset that can carry you through the times that it may feel like a chore. All right, so if we have any other questions, I believe we have one more question. Take this one more question from Lisa Elwood. If young people want to share their poetry but have stage fright performing, have you got any tips to help them overcome it? I do have a tip, actually. A couple. One of them is to remember that every single poet who you see performing anywhere, the first time that they got on stage, they were maximum nervous. They themselves were incredibly nervous. There's actually I was a psych major in college. There's a study that said that death is the number 2 rated fear behind public speaking. Public speaking is rated as a bigger, more widespread fear than death. Okay, and so it is completely natural for you to feel that sort of anxiety the first time you get up to do something. However, I've also seen, having been in this poetry world for however many years it's been, I've seen that nervous person get up and read their poem and share themselves for the first time on stage, and every single time when it's done and they walk off, they are glad that they did it. And it may sound small, but that's a 100% approval rating, that sharing your poetry in front of an audience at an open mic or poetry event, a 100% approval rate. Puppies don't even have a 100% approval rating. There's always gonna be some person, nah, he's not that cute. All right, but poetry ranks above puppies in terms of being the thing. And so I would say the things to keep in mind is that one, it's completely natural to be nervous and feel that anxiety. And two, you will, if you push through and you like get it, you know, get the vibes up to push yourself to go do that and to go share, that you will be the better for it. And there's no other experience like that, I think. Yes, cheers. I'm so glad that landed on some ears. And so I believe that this would wrap up this installment of Get Lit Presents America's Next Top Poet. That's not exactly the title, but it kind of rolls off the tongue and it's cool. And so I want to thank Tyris. Tyris he's outdoors, subjected to the elements. We're not sure what's happening out there, but I want to thank Tyris for coming and sharing a piece of himself with us today. I want to thank Salome Agbaroshi, Violeta Esquivel, and Naire Francis, the Get Lit poets, Get Lit players who came and they shared their poetry. I want to thank everyone here at Second Home and the Berggruen Institute for putting such a wonderful event in front of us and giving me this delightful orb of a pod to stream out with, and giving me a chance to do what I honestly love to do most is host events and kind of shepherd along, and hopefully at the end some people who had never given poetry or spoken word a second thought, they may come out of it with the notion that it's something that they might want to attend again or maybe even try themselves. All right, and that's the way you spread something that you love throughout the world, just inspiring more people to participate in it and feel the way that you feel about it. So thank you so much. And until next time, I bid thee adieu and vote.